How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Fame, and we are back with another FPL video, and today we're going to be taking a look at 4 teams to target from game week 30 onwards. We're in the last final stretch of the season and its international break at the moment, so I thought I'd take a look at some teams that are pretty good for at least the majority of the run-in, or will start to have good fixtures and potentially could be looking at players for your wild card if you still have it. I do not, but I'm looking to potentially transfer some of these players in so I can have some players who are going to be quite good for the run-in. If you haven't done so already, make sure to leave a like on the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new, and turn those notification bells on so you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. Drop us a follow over on Twitter so you can see all the action that is being up to date over there, as well as give us a follow over on Twitch so you can catch us when we go live for our preview and deadline streams, which we'll be doing next week, Monday, this time for the preview, as well as deadline stream as per normal on Saturday as well. The preview streams are usually 7 p.m. EST, so make sure to come check that out. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first team that we'll be discussing today is Chelsea. We discussed them a couple of weeks ago in game week 28 as for players to potentially bring in, but I kind of wanted to throw a different spin on it. Yes, Chelsea have been keeping a lot of clean sheets, 12 in their 14 games since Thomas Tuchel has taken over, but I kind of wanted to look at some of the differences in defense in terms of what you can get in terms of their FPL assets. In terms of the fixtures, they're quite good. You know, West Brom at home, Crystal Palace away. On the FPL site, it'll say that there's a blank in 32, but basically that fixture is probably going to be moved to the midweek of 32 because they'll be playing the FA Cup semi-final fixture versus Manchester City on either the Saturday or the Sunday, and then they'll play on the Tuesday or Wednesday in game week 32 still. Either that or they'll get a double in 33 regardless, which will just... It's fine either way. You're still probably going to have these 4 fixtures in a row. And then West Ham away, who've been looking quite good, but Chelsea themselves have been even better defensively than West Ham, who have been quite good themselves. Chelsea just don't seem like they're conceding. I think they've only conceded 2 goals in the 14 games that Thomas Tuchel has taken over, and they just look fantastic. And partly has come down to these 3 men that you see here: Azpilicueta, Alonso, and Rudiger, all bringing pretty much different things into that back line. Alonso bringing a lot more goal threat, can be quite potent against teams that like to sit in and defend, which a lot of teams in the Premier League do. Now, Alonso doesn't necessarily bring as much, kind of pace in terms of tracking back, but he does bring a lot of goal threat in terms of going forward, as well as an aerial threat and a set piece threat when Chelsea are on the front foot. Antonio Rudiger, someone who's been quite sturdy at the back, doesn't necessarily like the ball at his feet, but is someone who is quite good and quite solid, and for his price is definitely someone who we need to look at. However, he's not the most consistent player in the back line. I would say he's probably like a 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6 kind of starts, and 4.6 million, I mean, that's something you can't ignore. And if you're doubling up, I think that he's probably one of them in defense that you would go for. Alonso a bit more riskier, potentially probably a 3 and 5 type of player. But against these 3 or 4 fixtures, probably say Alonso's probably got 3 of those in his pocket. West Brom, Crystal Palace, maybe Brighton or West Ham, but we'll have to see on that front. And then Azpilicueta, the captain of the team, the club captain of the team, 5.8 million. If you're going to look for consistency, he's definitely the one in there, and does like to rack up a little bit of, quite high BPS totals in lower scoring games. He's also quite good in the new system that Tuchel has deployed, which Chelsea used to have under Antonio Conte's reign in their title-winning season, and I think that he's someone who is a big part of that. Very good in a back 3, can be played as a fullback, but is quite good in a back 3, and with the covering pace of either Pulisic or Hudson-Odoi on that right wing back, or even Reece James role, he is somebody who doesn't necessarily need the pacing behind. He can let them do kind of most of the legwork, and then he can use kind of his experience, his positional sense to kind of stop them from getting in behind. And I think that he's just been doing quite well. Alonso's obviously shown a revitalization, same with Rudiger. Those 2 in particular were just not in the team at all, not involved. Azpilicueta from time to time, you would see him at center back, but Alonso and Rudiger probably weren't even a consideration. And then Tuchel comes in and says, yeah, you 3, you're going to be my main guys. Christensen has stepped in, but I think that he'll be the one to make way when the likes of, Thiago Silva comes back in. And we've seen that kind of Christensen and Zuma have kind of flopped in and out. Rudiger plays in, the Premier League games and has done, quite well with Azpilicueta. And when Thiago Silva did get injured, it was Christensen that came on as a sub. So I feel that he sees, Tuchel seems that as a like-for-like replacement. So I think for consistency of starts, Azpilicueta, he is the most expensive, and he's the safest option, and that's what you get for his price. Alonso, bit more of a, kind of a maverick pick. If you're going for something as a one-off and you're wildcarding at 31, I think Alonso versus West Brom doesn't seem like any more of a maverick pick or transfer than that. And then Antonio Rudiger, someone who's a lot cheaper in price and will probably get you 4 out of 5 starts. And that's pretty much what you're going to ask of him as well. And has a little bit of aerial threat overall. But yeah, that's Chelsea. I kind of wanted to go through it a little bit there. With the other 3 teams, we haven't talked about them too much. So let's see what the first out of those 3 is for teams to target from Game Week 30 onwards. And one of those 3 teams is a team that has been riddled by injuries the most out of any team in the Premier League this season. Injuries in midfield, injuries in defense, injuries up front, injuries everywhere. But a team that will have very, very good fixtures come Game Week 32 onwards and has the best run-in out of all the teams in the Premier League, in my opinion. And the season ticker shows that. Nothing but a sea of FDR2 rating fixtures for Liverpool. And you can even say the games 30 through 32 aren't that bad. Arsenal's defense, not great. Aston Villa, a bit up and down without Grealish. Yes, he'll probably be back, but again, if he's not, then they could still be, shaky defensively. And Liverpool kind of want to get back at them after, taking the 7-2 thumping earlier on in the season. And then Leeds, somebody who's very open, typically. Yes, their pitch at Ellen Road hasn't fully settled in, but I think that, the likes of Salah, the likes of Firmino, the likes of Jota, the likes of, Mane, these sorts of players are definitely good at getting in behind in space. And I think that, Arsenal, Aston Villa, and Leeds will leave space open. They're not going to be a team that sets up a low block and is going to be organized and that sort of stuff. It's like the Burnleys, like the Wolves, these sorts of teams. These teams are going to leave space in behind. And the 3 players we've highlighted are teams that have definitely have that kind of have shown or have that kind of X factor in them. Trent, no one really does what Trent does in Liverpool's team. He can cross from deep. He's very good on set plays, obviously, for direct and indirect free kicks. Great on corners as well. And can just create that, just magical one-touch ball out from under his feet into the box and create a massive chance for the likes of Mane or somebody that's surging forward. Maybe a Genie Wijnaldum. And I think for his price, he's a bit on the expensive side, but with this run of fixtures, definitely someone to consider because he is going to be their key player in that regard. Once they have that midfield back up and running, Henderson being back, Fabinho's now back as well. Maybe they get one of the center backs before the end of the season. Then you're starting to look at a team that, okay, yeah, Trent can start to maraud forward a little bit and not have as much repercussions, when the ball's played in behind him. And then the 2 most dangerous men, in my opinion, Salah, obviously on penalties on his day, can score a hat-trick against anyone and is typically quite good versus the bottom teams, especially at home. And then Diego Jota, who's just been that X-factor. He's been Firmino's effective replacement. He creates a different dynamic in the front 3 where he is looking to get in around the box and score, whereas Firmino likes to get in and around the box and set up the plays. Jota's getting in those positions where they can score. Now, with Liverpool's dynamic being shifted and more towards Thiago being a creator and not having the midfield being more functional, what's happening is when the ball gets into feet for players to take a shot, it's the likes of Firmino more often than not that's in a position to have to make the attempt on goal rather than the likes of Salah or Mane. And that's because the balls aren't being raked into the channels from Van Dijk, from Gomez, from Fabinho, from Henderson, and putting them into the channels where Mane and Salah can create chances and create cutbacks. Whereas it's playing a little bit more centrally. Thiago likes to be a bit more commanding, and that leaves Jota in the middle of the park where he's able to pick up the ball in and around the 18, create little 1-2, similar to how Man United used Rashford and Martial last season, and then create those chances in that way. So Jota for 6.6 I think could be quite good as well, and he's a midfielder, which makes it even better. And like we said, Salah obviously with the penalties as well. He's obviously always going to be a threat. I think more so than Mane, even though a lot of chances have fallen to Mane. I just think Mane's been quite wasteful. Salah can be as well, but for that little bit extra, you want the security of the penalties. And I think for the run-in Salah being a leader in the Golden Boot race, I think Klopp will want to keep him in there. And I think that, he's not going to be dropped as much, or he'll see probably the most minutes out of any of the forwards, going into the, latter stage of the season, because he is leading this, the whole, season of the Premier League in goals scored. So I think he's definitely going to be one for the run. And I think a double up is definitely needed. Salah and Jota, Salah and Trent, or even all three potentially. I mean, it's literally just a sea of green from game week 33 onwards. Game week 32 should probably be an FDR rating of 2 because Leeds aren't that great defensively. So Liverpool, if they could just kind of strike the right formula together, maybe get some more confidence in the Champions League if they go through versus Real Madrid and make it to the semi-final, potentially a final, that may spur them on to bring some form and bring some points to our FPL teams for the rest of the season. Now, another team that's been in form and is fighting for potentially that second spot in the Premier League is Leicester City. Now, they have a couple of rough fixtures after the international break. Man City at home, although they did beat them 5-2 the last time they played at the Etihad, and West Ham, two teams that you don't want to play right now. They're both quite tough and quite difficult to beat and score against. But after that, they have a great run of fixtures all the way up until and including game week 35. And you can even say 36. I believe they play Spurs in that fixture. Is still quite a good fixture as well. I think that, in game week 32, especially West Brom at home, that looks like a very good and tasty fixture there. That on the FPL side will also say that it's a blank because Leicester made it to the semi-final of the FA Cup. But what will probably be the likelihood of it happening for that fixture is, instead of it being played on the weekend where the FA Cup fixture will be played, they will just play midweek instead because it is a free week to do so there. So I think that that's a fine fixture for a captaincy option. And it depends on the potential injuries because they do have a couple of key men out. I think versus Man City, they're going to go with a probably similar system to the way they play versus United. West Ham, they might go a little bit more on the front foot, but that depends on who comes back. Now, the three players that I've highlighted have been the three players that have been very good over this run, and since the likes of Maddison and Barnes, the two main ones, have been out. And that's Yuri Tielemans creating from deep, making runs in and around the box, getting, kind of attack returns here and there. Iheanacho's just been a player reborn, getting a hat-trick and then a brace. He's just been scoring goals for fun, and he's been the main focal point, whereas Vardy's been more the creator, which is a bit of an interesting dynamic. So maybe a double up there for the two men in form. Once Vardy starts getting in and among the goals, Leicester's going to be very hard to keep out because then you have two players to worry about. Most teams in the Premier League going with a standard back four. In some cases, you're going to have to start considering potentially, a back five or like a three center backs with two wing backs to potentially cover these two guys, because them 1v1 up against center backs can cause them nightmares. Iheanacho's strength and ability from in and around the box. Vardy, again, pacing behind, causing, potential problems there. So if Iheanacho drops off to, get the ball and receive it, Vardy makes a run in behind, Iheanacho plays it back, Tielemans plays it in over the top, or Maddison, who we know has that quality when he's back, causes a lot of problems there as well. It's just an interesting thing to see how the shape is going to change. So previously, when Barnes and Maddison were fit, they usually went with a 4-2-3-1 system. So a 4 at the back with like Sionku, or Sionchu, however you pronounce his name, and Johnny Evans, both very solid center backs, and rotating Fofana in every now and again. Then at right back, you had the likes of Pereira, or you had James Justin playing in there when he was fit, and then Castagne or Thomas at left back. Tielemans and Ndidi, one of the best pivots, potentially, if not the best pivot in the entire league in a 4-2-3-1 system. Maddison in the 10, Barnes out on the left, Iosi Perez or Dennis Pratt or, Albrighton out on that right-hand side, and then Vardy through the middle. But I think with Iheanacho in there, kind of changes things a little bit, and you can still kind of work around how you want to play with those front two. I think you got to play with the men in form, and I think what might end up happening is Brendan Rodgers might go to basically a 3-4-1-2, where basically he'll just play Barnes at left wing back because he's quite good at tracking and he's quite good at making runs. So kind of use him similarly to how he used Castagne, just with somebody with a bit more pace, similar to how he functioned Albrighton versus United in their FA Cup win over the past weekend. Somebody who can get up and down the pitch and create as well, but he's also good at running in behind. And with Fofana, Soyuncu, and the likes of Johnny Evans, Not really anyone's getting past that. And then you have Tielemans and Ndidi in that double pivot. Madison just ahead of them. And then Iheanacho and Vardy. That team looks to be quite dangerous. And then you can kind of integrate the likes of Iosi Perez, Dennis Pratt, and these sorts of players in there as well. And I think if, Brendan Rodgers is going to do that for the run-in, they don't have Europe to worry about. Okay, they have one game in a FA Cup semi-final versus Southampton. They're probably going to win that. And then they don't have to worry about the final until, I believe, the end of the season. Iheanacho and Vardy as a double up could be great. Potentially a triple up with the likes of Madison or Barnes, depending on how they change the system. I hope they go with that sort of system where Barnes is more of like a wing back, and then you can kind of literally just go Iheanacho, Vardy, Madison. Those three are going to be absolutely on fire and lethal in that system. And from game week 32 up until including, like I said, around game week 35, 36, pretty good running. And I would even, bet them to score a goal potentially versus City, and they scored quite a few at the Etihad. So Leicester definitely a team to watch out for in the run-in for these next coming game weeks. And last but not least, the team that has been quite forgotten over the past few weeks, but are starting to get some really, really good fixtures for clean sheet purposes. Pretty much up until the end of the season. Obviously, they have Spurs, Everton, and United to end the last 3 games of the season. But again, there's still potentially a clean sheet versus Spurs, who don't typically score very many. Everton can be, not on their game at times. We saw that versus Burnley. They have a bit of fragility up front, not taking the chances that they should. And with the likes of potentially Raul Jimenez coming back, towards the end of the season, maybe that gives them a little bit of a boost. And I think that these fixtures definitely warrant potentially a Wolves defender in there. West Ham at home, Fulham away, Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home. I mean, if Wolves don't keep a clean sheet in 3 out of 4 of those, I mean, something is probably wrong there. Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home, 2 teams that don't score very many goals. Fulham don't take their chances. Again, should be quite easy to do. And then West Ham, they've been looking a lot brighter, but Wolves have been, slowly starting to go back to the Wolves of old. The 3-4-3 system, the kind of the back 5, the compactness, the getting the set pieces. They're using the pace on the break in the second half when the teams start to tire, with the likes of Traore and Neto. And if they just get Raul Jimenez back, that maybe just be just that little something, that little bit of magic up front where they're able to, turn things around and nick that 1-0 like they were doing last season, or even getting that 1-1. The players I've highlighted here is Rui Patricio, Roman Saiz, and Connor Cody. I think Willy Bolly is also a good shout as well at 5.4 million. And also with Patricio's recent injury, he had a bit of a bad knock, quite a bad head injury, and was taken off. But he should be back. If he's not, though, their backup goalkeeper, Ruddy, is only 4.3 million, and he could be fantastic if Patricio, let's say, is out for an extended period of time. So make sure to keep an eye on that. Could be a very good asset there. But Roman Saiz, someone who's always been quite deadly from set pieces, but not necessarily a solid, kind of player in terms of consistency of starts. There are times where he's in the team for 5-6 games in a row, then he's dropped for 3 games randomly, and then he's back in the team. But when he is in the team, he's always a threat from set pieces. So I'd probably say he's more of like a 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7 starts type of defender. Whereas if you want to go with somebody similar price, maybe not necessarily as much goal threat, but is going to play game in, game out, it's Connor Cody. And in low scoring clean sheet wins for Wolves, Cody could potentially be up there in terms of the bonus points because of the amount of clearances, blocks, those sorts of things that he does make throughout a game. Not necessarily on the passing front, but a lot of clearances, a lot of blocks, a lot of, kind of headers away. He will rack up the BPS for that as well. And with Jimenez coming back, if you have Jimenez potentially and a defender double up, that could be something that could, bowl quite well for the end of the season, assuming Jimenez does come back. Maybe a potential double up in defense, although I think Chelsea defense, Man United defense, there's been a lot of defenses that have been, staking their claim. And even City's run-in from 34 onwards is still quite good as well after their blank in 33. So I think definitely keep an eye out for the Wolves defense. I wouldn't say, see how they do potentially versus West Ham. For those wildcarding on 31, I definitely think that a defender, either Saiz, Cody, or Bolly, is definitely going to be one in there. And if let's say if Patricio is out, we obviously hope for a speedy recovery. 4.3 million Ruddy and goal could be fantastic, but I think safety options, Cody, a little bit more exciting and set piece threat in Sice, and then obviously if Patricio's available, I think in goal could be a direct swap for the same price point for Martinez, who has, after Fulham in 30, could be a bit of a rocky patch in terms of, potential clean sheets there, whereas Patricio's looks a sea of green, basically, versus Fulham, Sheffield United, and Burnley. You would expect 3 clean sheets in that. So I think the Wolves could definitely provide some budget aspects in defense for the run-in for the rest of this season. And that is going to do it for our teams to target in Game Week 30 onwards. If you haven't done so already and you are enjoying the content, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and turn those notification bells on so that you can get the content as soon as it is readily available. And drop us a follow over on Twitter so you can keep up to date with all the different content and when videos get posted and when we go live over on Twitch. So follow us over there. It's PilotFlame226 on those platforms. We will be doing a preview stream this time next week at 7 p.m. EST. There will be a pinned comment down below to check that out. And we'll be doing a deadline stream because it is a Saturday deadline for Game Week 30. So a week Saturday coming. So on April 4th, we will be live 5 a.m. EST, bright and early for that. So make sure to come check us out on the live stream for that. Thanks for watching, and until the next one, take care.